There's a very specific kind of player that every single team building around a ball-dominant superstar is absolutely desperate to find, and they almost never ever come available. A young, elite, two-way big man. A rim protector who can switch, pass, and finish. The exact piece that covers a superstar guard's biggest weakness. Players like that get locked up and never let go. And yet tonight, on the show, Shams Charania said something that made me sit straight up because he was describing exactly that kind of player potentially shaking loose, and the team he connected him to was the Los Angeles Lakers. So stay with me, Lakers fans, because this could be the defensive anchor and front court cornerstone that turns the Luka Doncic era into a genuine contender. Here's what Shams said, cutting right through the noise. According to sources, the Los Angeles Lakers have explored the idea of a blockbuster trade for Cleveland Cavaliers star big man Evan Mobley, one of the best young two-way players in the entire NBA, an elite defender, and a sorely underrated passer, potentially coming to Los Angeles to give Luka the frontcourt partner he's been missing, Evan Mobley, in the purple and gold next to Luka. Read that again and really let it sink in, because if you understand why he could even become available, and you understand exactly what Luka Doncic needs around him, you understand precisely why this could be one of the most fitting and powerful moves of the entire offseason, and I'm here to walk you through exactly how a player of this caliber ended up potentially on the market, because it's a fascinating situation. Now I already know some of you are going to bring up the price and how hard it would be to pry him loose, and we're going to get to all of it, I promise, because I always give you the honest version, but stay with me, because the way Mobley's game fits next to Luka is just about perfect. Let me start with how Evan Mobley could even become available, because this is the part that makes it so fascinating. Mobley has been a cornerstone in Cleveland, a foundational piece they've built around, paid like a future superstar, and for the most part treated as untouchable. But the Cavaliers are at a crossroads. They've been a regular season power that has come up short when it matters most, and reporting indicates there are real internal questions about whether their expensive top-heavy core is built to win at the highest level. When a team like that starts to wonder if it needs to shake things up, even its best young pieces can enter the conversation. Reporting suggests that of all their high-priced players, Mobley carries the most trade value, and while the Cavaliers have so far resisted inquiries, the fact that he's even being discussed at all tells you the door is no longer welded shut. A team facing hard questions about its ceiling with an expensive roster is exactly how a player this good can suddenly become gettable. That's the crack in the door. So now let me tell you exactly who Evan Mobley is, because this is the part that should get you out of your seat. Evan Mobley is, very simply, one of the best young two-way big men in the entire NBA, and it isn't close. He is, first and foremost, an absolutely elite, game-changing defender. The kind of rim-protecting, switchable, all-everything defensive anchor that genuinely wins playoff series in the spring. He can guard bigs in the post, he can switch out and stay in front of quick guards on the perimeter, and he erases shot after shot at the rim. He has been recognized repeatedly as one of the very best defensive players in the entire league. But here's the thing, he is so much more than just a defender. He's a sorely underrated passer who can operate as a genuine hub in the offense, a smooth, mobile finisher around the basket, and a player whose outside shooting has steadily, encouragingly improved year over year. He's young, he's still ascending, and he's locked into the prime of his career for years and years to come. When you talk about the most valuable supporting players in all of basketball, the guys who genuinely move the needle for a contender, Evan Mobley is right at the top of that list. Acquiring a player like this isn't adding a piece, it's adding a cornerstone. So now let's talk about why this fits Luka Doncic so perfectly, because this is the heart of it. But first, let me make sure you really appreciate how rare this archetype is, because it's the whole point. In today's NBA, the single hardest thing to find is a big man who can do everything, protect the rim, switch out onto guards, and never be a liability on the offensive end. Most bigs can do one of those things. The truly special ones do too. Evan Mobley does all of it, and he does it at an all-defensive level while still being young enough to get better. Think about how few players on the entire planet fit that description. A true rim-protecting anchor who can also guard in space, pass like a guard, and finish everything around the basket. You can count them on one hand, and the ones who exist are almost never available because their teams understand they are the connective tissue of a championship roster, the kind of player who makes everyone around him better on both ends. So the mere fact that a player of this exact ultra rare profile is even being whispered about on the market is the entire reason this is such an enormous story. Here's the thing about building around Luka. He is one of the greatest offensive engines the game has ever seen, but he has two clear needs around him. First, he needs elite, genuine defense, especially at the rim and on the back line, because Luka can be hunted and targeted on that end in a playoff series, and you have to surround him with players who protect the paint and cover for him. Second, he needs a frontcourt partner who can finish the plays Luka creates, set screens, roll, and operate as a connective passer so the offense keeps flowing even when Luka rests or gets swarmed. And here's exactly why Evan Mobley is so perfect for this situation. He happens to be genuinely elite at both of those things at the very same time. He's one of the best defensive anchors in the league, so he directly covers Luka's biggest weakness, the defensive end. And he's a mobile, skilled finisher and passer who would feast on the looks Luka creates, a dream pick and roll and dribble handoff partner who also keeps the ball moving. You're not just adding a star next to Luka. You're adding the one exact star whose specific strengths plug directly into Luka's specific weaknesses, elite rim protection and connective frontcourt versatility, all wrapped up in one young, ascending two-way big. Just imagine a Lakers team with Luka orchestrating the entire offense and Evan Mobley anchoring the defense, protecting the rim, and finishing every lob in sight. That's not just good. That's a genuine, legitimate championship foundation, and crucially, it's young enough to actually last for years. So now let's talk about how this would actually work, because the price is the key. Mobley is owed a massive long-term salary, one of the biggest for a player at his position. To trade for him, the Lakers would have to match that money, and crucially, put together a package compelling enough to convince a reluctant Cleveland team to part with a foundational piece. That almost certainly means significant outgoing salary, young talent, and a haul of draft picks. It would be a major, complicated, genuinely franchise-altering trade, no question about it, and the Cavaliers would have to actually decide internally that they're ready to break the whole thing up. But the Lakers have always been a franchise willing to make the bold, blockbuster move when a player of this caliber is on the table, and pairing a young, elite, two-way big with Luka in his prime is exactly the kind of swing they exist to make. The money makes it hard, the Cavs' reluctance makes it harder, but the prize makes it worth exploring. And let me put that on-court fit into even sharper terms, because in a playoff series, it's everything. Luka Doncic is going to get his offense no matter what a defense throws at him because he's one of the most unstoppable engines alive. But playoff basketball comes down to two things a Luka team has historically struggled with: getting stops when it matters and surviving the minutes when the defense loads up on him. Evan Mobley answers both. On defense, he's the anchor who lets you switch every action, wall off the paint, and erase the easy baskets that sink you in a tight series, taking enormous pressure off Luka on that end. On offense, he's the perfect release valve, the screener and roller and short roll passer who keeps the offense flowing when Luka gets trapped, and the lob threat who turns Luka's drive and kicks into easy dunks. So you'd have one superstar who guarantees elite offense and a young anchor who guarantees you stops and easy buckets when the game tightens. That's a championship formula, the kind of two-way balance that actually wins in the spring. And because Mobley is so young, that balance could hold for years, not just one window. But I told you I'd be honest with you, so let's take the doubts head on, because on this one, they are real. The first objection is the cost. To land a player this good, especially when a team doesn't want to trade, the Lakers would have to give up a massive package, real players and draft capital, which could thin out the depth around Luka. That's a fair, real concern. But for a generational talent like Luka in his prime, you have to be willing to push your chips in to build a championship core, and a young, elite, two-way big who covers Luka's exact weaknesses is precisely the kind of player worth pushing in for. You can fill out the rest of the roster with role players. You cannot easily find a defensive anchor of Mobley's caliber who is also this young. The second objection is whether Cleveland would ever actually do it. They've resisted inquiries. They've signaled they want to run it back, and prying him loose might simply be impossible. That's the most honest concern of all, and I won't pretend otherwise. This may be more about the possibility than a deal that's truly on the table. But teams that fall short at the highest level eventually face hard choices, and the ones that are ready and willing when a star becomes gettable are the ones that land the prize. The third objection is the offensive fit, the question of whether Mobley's still developing jump shot gives Luka enough spacing. It's a fair question. But Mobley's passing, screening, rolling, and finishing all complement a primary creator beautifully, and his defense is the part that matters most, covering Luka's biggest weakness. The fit on both ends is far stronger than any spacing concern, and let me put this in the context of what the Lakers are actually chasing, because it raises the stakes. This is a franchise that does not measure success in playoff appearances or fun regular seasons, it measures success in banners. When you acquire a generational offensive talent like Luka Doncic in his prime, you have a sacred obligation to maximize that window to build a genuine championship roster around him while he's at his peak. And the Western Conference is a brutal gauntlet loaded with elite teams, punishing front courts and physical defenses. The kind of conference where you simply cannot survive 4 rounds without rim protection and two-way size. You need a defensive anchor who can hold up against the West's best bigs and still switch onto its best guards. Evan Mobley, young and elite on that end, is exactly that. Passing on a chance to pair a two-way anchor of his caliber with Luka, when he might genuinely be gettable, would be the kind of missed opportunity a franchise with the Lakers standards simply cannot afford. So let me tell you where my head is at, and then I've got one final thought that I think is the real key to all of this. If the Lakers pull this off, they give Luka Doncic a frontcourt partner whose strengths fill Luka's exact weaknesses, elite rim protection and connective frontcourt skill, and they do it with a player young enough to anchor the franchise for the next decade. Picture it, Luka running the offense, Mobley anchoring the defense, protecting the rim, switching everything, and finishing every lob and pocket pass Luka throws. Whether it works comes down to the cost, and whether Cleveland would ever say yes, and that's the real debate, but the fit with Luka is just about perfect. The ceiling is a championship, and the Lakers have never been shy about chasing exactly this kind of two-way star power. And here's the thought I want to leave you with, the part almost nobody is connecting. The rarest, most valuable thing you can add to a team built around a ball-dominant offensive genius is a young, elite defensive anchor who also fits the offense. A player who covers every one of your superstar's weaknesses without taking the ball out of his hands. Those players almost never become available because the teams that have them know exactly how precious they are. But every so often, a contender that has fallen short starts asking hard questions, and a door that was welded shut cracks open. That may be exactly what's happening in Cleveland. And the Lakers, with a superstar who needs precisely what Mobley provides, defense and frontcourt versatility, are perhaps the most logical destination of all. When a player this good fits your superstar this perfectly, and might actually be gettable, you make the call, and the opportunity is sitting right there. So let me boil it all the way down for you, because I want this crystal clear. A generational offensive engine in Luka, who specifically needs elite rim protection and a connective frontcourt partner to reach his ceiling. A young, elite, two-way anchor in Evan Mobley, who provides exactly those things at an all-defensive level with years of prime still ahead of him, and a rare opening because a contender that has fallen short may finally be ready to ask hard questions. The cost in assets and salary is steep and real, and Cleveland may simply refuse, no question. But the fit with Luka is about as perfect as anything you will ever find. The ceiling is a championship that could last, and the Lakers, of all franchises, exist to make exactly this kind of bold, star-chasing swing. When the talent, the fit, and a rare opening all line up at once, the smart teams don't hesitate. I'm not telling you it's signed. I have no reporting that says the ink is dry, and I am never going to make something up for you, because the only reason you keep coming back to me is that I shoot you straight, even when the honest version includes very real concerns about the cost, the spacing fit, and whether Cleveland would ever actually do it. Those concerns are real, and this would be a major, complicated deal that the Cavs may simply refuse. But I am telling you, the talent is real, the fit with Luka is just about perfect, and a young, elite two-way big is the rarest kind of cornerstone. And tonight, live on national television, Shams Charania put the Lakers right into the middle of that conversation for everyone to hear. You stack all of that up, the fit and the championship ceiling, and the fact that a young, elite two-way big might genuinely be on the market, and you can feel it, can't you? This one would just make sense. So here's what I need from you. Keep your phone close over the next few weeks, because once a player of this exact caliber is even being discussed on the market, things can move incredibly fast. Remember where you were when you heard this, because if it happens, you'll want to remember the night the Lakers found Luka his perfect front court partner. And tell me down below, do you do it? If you're the Lakers, do you push the chips in to land a young, elite two-way big and build a championship core around Luka? Or do you decide the cost and assets is simply too steep and look for a different, cheaper kind of piece next to Luka? I really want to hear it, because this is exactly the kind of franchise-defining all-or-nothing swing that separates the teams chasing banners from the ones just hoping to make noise.